Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Hello, Justin, and welcome to the number one championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Now, you may be thinking, what's going on here? Why is this just on YouTube? And that's completely understandable. We're putting more effort into our YouTube content once again, aren't we, Justin? We had a spell where we were trying to pump out videos as much as we could, but now we're getting back on that horse, aren't we? So because we're now gearing up to the season on the full-blown podcast, we're looking ahead to August. We're now trying to look ahead to that and do bits and pieces there. But there is still transfers, of course, going on. So this is a mini transfer roundup where we're just going to go through the confirmed deals in the Championship over the past week or so. I mean, it's actually been less than a week, but, last few days, we'll say that instead. So without further ado, we'll kick things off with Coventry City. And they've signed striker Ellis Sims from Everton for a reported £8 million. It's as Victor Gyökeres is expected to complete a big money move away. Justin, Coventry showing great ambition. People look at the fee and go, oof, that's a lot of money, but they're making more than double that from the Gyökeres deal and they've got no debt, so why not?
Well, exactly. It's a case of why not. If you've got the money, then they need to spend it. And I think the Sims deal actually probably represents a lot of value to Coventry in the long term. To my surprise, Sims is only 22. I say to my surprise, it's mainly because he's such a physical stature and he looks older than 22. He's coming in with a good in a good age bracket, and there's a lot of potential there for him to develop over time. And especially under Mark Robins, you'd expect him to do that. But for me, I think even if it's a full £8 million fee, I think it's good value for money because, as I say, there's good potential sell on there. If Sims does stay for 2 years, does really well, he's going to get sold and he's going to justify that fee. Or if it's a smaller fee up front with potential add-ons, then if Sims does well, then he's going to cost a fee either way. So yeah, I think it's a really good and smart move from Coventry, and one that caught me by surprise because I think Sims was linked with just about everybody who's willing to spend a little bit of money this summer. So for Coventry to land him is a real sign of intent there from Mark Robins and Doug King.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Coventry is showing great ambition with this signing. As I say, they haven't got any debt and they're getting loads of money from Gyökeres, so they may as well splash this money on, someone who is young, a really quality player in his own right anyway. It's a big investment, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's not just a case of, strengthening that position again when Gyökeres does leave. It's about, having someone who could potentially play for them in the Premier League. And if that doesn't happen, they can sell him on for a big fee probably later down the line, all being well. So, I mean, after the playoff final, many would have expected Coventry to lose Gyökeres and Gustavo Hamer, kind of drift away from the promotion picture, I suspect. This is them saying, we're not going to let that happen. Ellis Sims is an excellent striker, averaged a goal every 162 minutes for Sunderland last season, was suffering a lot with injuries, so possibly would have scored more if it wasn't for those injuries. Only 22, so plenty of room to develop. I don't think he's too dissimilar to Gyökeres as a striker either. The outstanding thing about Big Vic is his dribbling ability and how he could get the ball on the halfway line and turn it all of a sudden into a big chance. I don't think Sims is as good at it because Gyökeres was bloody amazing at it, but Sims can still take on defenders and he was great at creating chances for teammates too when he was at Sunderland last season. So this move puts the rest of the Championship on notice. Coventry mean business again this season.
I would expect so. I think going into this close season, I expected Coventry to do a lot of business, but not to spend this sort of money. So for them to do it is, as I say, is a sign of intent. And again, it gets you excited as an outsider to see where they start to plot things. I think from Sims, he's a clinical forward. He's a very clinical forward. He had a higher shots per goal, goals per shot on target ratio than Victor Gyökeres. So Sims was hitting the target and scoring, whereas Gyökeres was not quite as efficient as Sims, albeit Gyökeres played more games than Sims in the Championship last season. But for me, I think it's a good value for money signing. And as I say, if they're going to want to push in that top six, they need a very efficient striker who's able to link up with the likes of Callum O'Hare, and he's back from injury, Casey Palmer, Matty Godden, and put the ball in the back of the net as well. And I think Sims ticks every box. He's a really unselfish player as well, which is going to go a long way in that Coventry team.
Very highly rated at Everton as well, wasn't he? And the fact that they sold him for £8 million probably says that he didn't want to actually get rid of him. But when that kind of money comes along, then it's hard for them to say no. So, yeah, played plenty of times for Everton as well last season, lest we forget. So, yeah, a really, really ambitious move by Coventry City. Let's move on to Middlesbrough, who have been extremely busy over the past week. They've signed QPR goalkeeper Seny Dieng, Man City forward Morgan Rogers, PEC Zwolle defender Rav van den Berg, and a couple of Aussies, midfielder Sammy Silvera and goalkeeper Tom Glover. There cannot be a goalkeeper whose second name is actually Glover. That must be a stage name. I cannot accept that his name is actually Glover. Which of those bits of business caught your eye the most, Justin?
I mean, you'd obviously venture towards Dieng because he's a goalkeeper who's got a point to prove this coming season. Statistically, he was one of the worst goalkeepers in the Championship last season. That being said, I don't think that's entirely his fault, because if you're playing in a team as poor as QPR were last season and you're facing as many shots as he was, then you're either going to make mistakes and you're going to concede goals. So I don't think you can really point the finger at him for most of that last season. That being said, as I say, he's got a point to prove. He's coming in. He was a middle of the road goalkeeper. I wouldn't say average, probably slightly above average in the seasons prior to last season. And he's going to Middlesbrough, who have got a lot of expectation of pushing for automatics once again. So he's going to have to come in. He's going to have to deal with that expectation. But looking at the numbers, he's a goalkeeper that's always impressed me. Just needs to shake off that potential hangover from last season. If he doesn't, then it could be a long season for him. Morgan Rogers is another one as well, because he's a player that's got so much expectation around him. Going into Blackpool last season, expected him to kick on, but weirdly, none of the January signings really made an impact for Blackpool last season. So for him to come in, he's a flexible forward, can play in any of the four front positions, going to give Carrick a lot of options. And he's a player, as I say, got a lot of potential. We want to see that prosper. And if Carrick can get Rodgers in the same vein of form that he got Marcus Force into, McGree, Akpom, then we've got a very exciting potential signing there for Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I mean, Morgan Rogers was class, wasn't he, for Lincoln a few seasons ago now. At Championship level, he's not really done it yet, but there's obviously a player there. You can't be too good for League One at such a young age and not, good enough for the Championship. It just doesn't, there's just not that crossover. So getting him on a permanent deal, I think, is quite eye-catching. But for me, Seny Dieng could be a superb signing for £2 million. Now, admittedly, he didn't have a great season last season. Dropped a few clangers for QPR. Dropped plenty of clangers for QPR, and was actually one of the poorer number one goalkeepers in the Championship. But you have to keep in mind, everyone was playing poorly for QPR in the second half of that season. Wasn't really anyone who could stand up and say, yeah, I've been doing my bit this season. What have you lot been doing? Prior to last season, Dieng was one of the best goalkeepers in the league and was being linked with loads of Premier League sides. I was surprised he was still at QPR last season, really. Yeah. The most important thing is, though, he is great with the ball at his feet. Distribution, really good. That will stand him in good stead playing under Michael Carrick. Zach Steffen became an integral part of how Borough played because he was so good with his feet. Dieng can be the same. We'll say, by the way, it's another big player going out the door at QPR. Dieng's gone. Rob Dickey's gone. Chris Martin was playing regularly for them at the end of last season. He's gone. Chris Willock, Elias Chair, both been linked with moves away. All their loan players from last season are gone as well. The quality of that squad has certainly dropped compared to the end of last season. Now, Stoke have re-signed midfielder Ben Pearson on a 4-year contract from Bournemouth. He joins permanently after coming in on loan last season. Justin?
It's a signing that needed to happen, let's be honest. If Stoke are going to be successful going forwards, they need to have a midfielder who's going to do the dirty work in there. They've not had that. The likes of Lewis Baker, Josh Laurent, Will Smallbone last season, Nick Powell. They're creative, focused players, and Ben Pearson coming in January, whilst form did drop off in the sort of final quarter or final 7 or 8 games, there was a rise in performances between sort of January and March, which was a major positive. I do think Ben Pearson was not pivotal to that, but he was a big reason for that. He's your archetype, will do the dirty work sort of midfielder, and he's going to keep regaining possession and giving it to those players who are going to make an impact in possession. And I think at most teams, most squads need a Ben Pearson-like character, but I think Ben Pearson is the best, one of the best in the Championship at doing it. And I think, as I say, if he can hit the form that he has done under Alex Neil, then he's going to be a very, very, very good signing this season for Stoke City.
Yeah, I love Ben Pearson. master of the dark arts, and that's a great way to endear yourself to us. The thing is, he's 28 now, so Stoke are getting him in his prime years. At Preston, he was a brilliant player, one of the best midfielders in the division. His career's somewhat stalled after that move to Bournemouth, so hopefully this will get it back on track. If it does, Stoke have got a brilliant player at the peak of his powers. 4-year deal means they'll have him until he's 32. And the kind of player that he is means he could, be the star at the base of Stoke's midfield consistently throughout that time. So, yeah, a very sensible move from Stoke. Enda Stevens has also joined Stoke after leaving Sheffield United. Do you like that one, Justin?
I do. I think he's a player that I've liked for a long time, but you sort of realise how little games he's played over the last couple of years. He's going to add depth at left wing back for Josh Tymon, which is a positive, and he can probably fit in on the left side of a back three if Alex Neil chooses to deploy that formation. So adds depth, and he's going to be that sort of player who's going to be a really important figure, I think, as a leader. So yeah, tidy signing. It's just a very Stoke signing in that you getting a player whose best years behind him, and you commit to a contract to him. But nonetheless, he's a good figure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Stoke have a habit of getting players in who are past their prime, and they seem to think, oh, maybe they're still that player, but they just don't tend to be, based off how they've gone in recent years. I don't think he's going to play ahead of Josh Tymon unless Josh Tymon's got a move lined up away, which I haven't seen anything about. So it would be surprising if that was the case. But yeah, he adds depth, I suppose. Wouldn't surprise me if he maybe filled in at centre half as well if they play with a back three. It's just a signing which doesn't really register much on my Richter scale, I've got to say. Now, we've been saying there's going to be something of a mass exodus at Leeds. Well, it's now got well underway. Brendan Harrison, Diego Llorente, Robin Koch, Mark Rocker have all left on loan. Loads of players have been making noises about wanting to move away, Justin, and I think there's only more to come.
Probably is. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think this is an end product of Victor Orta's pretty sketchy recruitment at Leeds over the past couple of years. I think Brendan Harrison's got a lot of potential. At 22, he's going to be wanting to play first-team football in the top flight, and I think Union Berlin's probably a good move for him because we're playing Champions League football next season, for example, with them. So I think that's a good loan move for him, and obviously if Leeds get promoted, he's going to come back a better player. Llorente's time at Leeds has been diminishing over the last couple of years, and obviously spent time on loan at Roma last season, so that's a move that makes sense. As for Koch and Rocker, I've not been particularly inspired by them. I think Koch's been a fairly inconsistent player, and again, if you're wanting to orchestrate put together a championship promotion winning campaign, you need players who are going to buy into it. And if they're not, then you move them on. I'm not saying that they wanted to leave or not, but as I say, you need players who are up for the challenge, and if they're not, then they move on. So I do think Leeds will replace them, but yeah, I think this many departures probably spells a little bit of concern, but I'd expect them to be replaced.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised they've all left on loan so far because you'd be looking to get some sort of money back for those kind of players. Maybe it will come later down the line, but I'd have thought at least
Loan
one or
fees.
two would leave on permanence. But there you go. Leeds need a big clear out, don't they? Because when they were in the Premier League, a lot of the players they signed in the Prem just weren't up to scratch, quite frankly. And so, are they going to be up for the fight of playing in the Championship? Probably not. Leeds should be focusing on the young players they've got there, like Joe Gellard, Charlie Cresswell, those kind of players. And the ones who have let them down in the Premier League need to get gone. They might be very good players in their own rights, and it wouldn't surprise me if someone like Brendan Harrison in particular went on to be quite a good player. But in the here and now, Leeds need people who are going to fight for Leeds United. Otherwise, they'll just be floating around in the Championship for the longest time. So that it's good that they're getting underway with, clearing out the deadwood, so to speak. And hopefully we see more of those players go out, and also lightens up the wage bill, doesn't it? Because Leeds are one of the only clubs who haven't signed anyone yet. So they need to get some players in, and freeing up those wages will certainly help. Final bit of transfer news. Rotherham have signed midfielder Cafu after his release from Nottingham Forest. The 30-year-old joins on a 1-year deal. Anything on this, Justin?
I was looking into his numbers, and they intrigued me a hell of a lot. He's a very tidy passer, keeps possession ticking over, not a tackler, not a ball winner in any sense, but he's a player who's going to sit in front of that back line and try and dictate the tempo of the game, which I think is perhaps maybe telling of where Matt Taylor wants to take this Rotherham team. Going to allow them, if he does play, he's going to allow them greater control in games. And he's an experienced player as well. Good character, and fans love him. Nottingham Forest fans loved him, so he's going to get fans on board as well. So, yeah, there are plenty of positives. I don't think he's going to tear up or pull up any trees, shall we say. But I think given his time at Forest, not played too many games, so it's quite hard to judge him. As I say, he's an experienced player coming into a team that is going to need it. And yeah, if you've got that around in the dressing room, it's going to be useful.
Yeah, he's all right, isn't he? It's a move that doesn't really register much at all for me. He adds a bit of depth in midfield, but not much else. I'd be a bit concerned if he was playing week in, week out at Rotherham. But yeah, experienced as well. A 1-year deal. I think he's just a gap filler, isn't he? I don't think he's much more than that, to be completely honest. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a mini transfer roundup of everything that's happened in the Championship over the past few days. If you are watching on or YouTube, if YouTube is where you usually catch up with everything that we do, then look forward to Thursday, where we're going to be doing part 1 of our episode, where we rank all the managers in the Championship based on how much we want them at our club, or how much we would want them at our club. So that's coming up on Thursday. Alternatively, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And we're uploading regularly there as well, every Thursday and Sunday. So wherever you are, thank you for watching this episode, and we'll be back again on Thursday. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Just a Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.